Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're looking into a really disturbing case, the disappearance of 17-year-old Zion Foster. On the surface, the story seemed simple. She told her mom, told her boyfriend she was going out with her favorite cousin, Jalen.
But almost instantly, that whole story just falls apart because the cousin, Jalen, he immediately claimed he hadn't seen Zion in years.
Right. That's the immediate red flag, isn't it?
Huge one, right from the start.
Exactly. So our mission here, looking at the details of this case, is to sort of navigate these inconsistencies, try to figure out what really happened to Zion. Okay, let's get into it, starting right after she went missing, January 2022.
Yeah, January 5th, 2022. That's when Zion's mother, Sierra Milton, realized Zion hadn't come home from the night before.
And Zion was, what, a 17-year-old senior working part-time?
That's right, 12th grader, had a job at Detroit Wing Company, and, importantly, she had run away before. Twice when she was 16, apparently over rules, and then once more around the time her grandmother got sick. Sort of a push for independence, maybe?
Okay, so there's a history. But this time felt different.
It seems so. On the night of January 4th, after her shift ended around 11 p.m., Zion specifically asked her mom if she could go out with Jalen, her favorite cousin. And her mom said yes.
Okay, permission granted.
Then the next day, things escalate. Zion's boyfriend, Vertez Gonzalez, messages Sierra. He's worried, can't get hold of Zion.
And he'd heard from her the night before.
Yeah, the very last text he got was just OMW on my way, sent at 12:59 a.m. But obviously she never made it to him.
And this is where Jalen comes back in, right, when Sierra calls him?
Exactly, and his reaction is just jarring. He flat out denies seeing her, denies even talking to her recently, says he hasn't seen her in years.
He even got angry about it?
Yeah, he seemed frustrated, called her lying about him, sneaky as hell and not safe, which, makes you pause. Why would Zion say she was meeting him?
It does make you wonder. But then there's the location data. That changes everything.
It really does. Zion shared her location with Vertez, and guess what? It pinged her right across the street from Jalen's house at 11:24 p.m. on January 4th.
And Vertez screenshotted it. Smart move.
Crucial move, because that digital proof just blows Jalen's denial out of the water.
So when confronted with this location proof, what did Jalen say then?
Well, he tried to pivot, suggested maybe she was just using him as an excuse, maybe visiting a neighbor nearby or something.
Did he offer any proof, like his Ring camera?
He did show some ring footage, yeah. But Zion's mother, Sierra, she watched it and noted there seemed to be gaps, missing time from that critical night.
Suspicious. And the police initially, given her history.
They leaned towards the runaway theory at first, yeah, based on those prior incidents, which you can imagine was incredibly frustrating for the family.
Absolutely. So they had to take matters into their own hands.
They did. Sierra and the family, they started their own search immediately, putting up flyers, holding rallies, trying desperately to get media attention. They weren't just sitting back.
Okay, let's look at Jalen a bit more. Who was he exactly?
He was 23 at the time, had 2 kids, was in a long-term relationship with his partner, Katrina Smith, and there was a family connection. He was cousins with Zion's former stepfather. So, not a stranger.
Right. And Sierra knew he was lying about not seeing Zion?
She was certain. She said she'd seen them together at her own house not long before Zion vanished. So his whole haven't seen her in years thing just wasn't true.
And this is where the neighbor's camera becomes so important.
Absolutely critical.
Oh.
Because this camera caught Jalen's white car pulling up to his house around 11:15 p.m. on that night, January 4th.
And who got out?
The footage showed 2 people getting out and going inside. 1 male, 1 female.
Okay, but wasn't his partner Katrina at work?
Exactly.
Yeah.
She worked an overnight shift, 11 p.m. to 6 a.m. Jalen had apparently just dropped her off. So the female entering the house with him couldn't have been Katrina.
Which strongly suggested
It was Zion. And later, police confirmed using location data that yes, the 2 people entering were Jalen and Zion.
Okay, so they go in. But the crucial part is, did the camera show Zion leaving?
That's the chilling part, no. The same neighbor's camera, which caught them arriving, never captured any footage of Zion leaving that house. Ever.
Oh, wow. So she goes in but doesn't come out, on camera at least. What else did the camera show?
It showed more suspicious activity later that night, or rather early the next morning. At 1:41 a.m., Jalen's car is seen leaving the driveway.
Okay.
But just before leaving, he backed the car into the driveway so the trunk was facing towards the backyard, kind of hidden from the street view. Then he drives off.
And he comes back.
Yeah, less than 10 minutes later, he returns. The whole sequence backing in like that, the short trip, it just looks really bad.
Very concerning. So this leads to a search warrant, right? For the house and car.
It does. Police get a warrant. But the initial search of the house and car, it didn't turn up anything immediately conclusive. No smoking gun right away.
But then they brought in dogs.
Yes. On January 19th, they brought in cadaver dogs, and the dogs alerted, specifically to the trunk of Jalen's car.
Cadaver dogs alerting means they smell decomposition, right? Or something associated with it.
Precisely. It strongly indicated that human remains or something contaminated by them had been in that trunk.
So, faced with the location data, the neighbor's camera, and now the cadaver dogs, Jalen must have known things were closing in.
You'd think so.
Yeah.
He agreed to be interviewed by detectives that same day, January 19th.
And what was his story now?
Okay, so this is his first official story to police. He admits picking Zion up. He says they went back to his place, they smoked some marijuana. Then, he claims, she just got sleepy, laid down on the couch, and died.
Just died from marijuana.
That's what he claimed initially.
Yeah.
He said he panicked, didn't know what to do, so he put her body in the trunk of his car.
The trunk the dogs alerted on.
It's the very same trunk. And then, he says, he drove to Highland Park and put her body in a dumpster.
Wow. Okay. Did the timeline match up at all?
Sort of. He estimated she died around 1:00 a.m. Her phone's last known activity was around 1:15 a.m., so roughly in that window.
But there was something else suspicious he did, wasn't there? With his phone.
Oh, yes. Hugely suspicious. Investigators found out that just 2 days after Zion disappeared, Jalen performed a full factory reset on his phone.
Wiping everything that screams trying to hide something.
Absolutely. It looks like a clear attempt to destroy any potential digital evidence on the device itself.
But did they get anything before the reset? Or from backups?
They did manage to recover some location data, despite the reset, and guess where it placed his phone? Around 1:48 a.m. that morning.
Let me guess. Highland Park, near the dumpsters.
Bingo. Right near those dumpsters he mentioned. So that part of his story, at least the location, seemed to have some corroboration.
Okay, so he admits she died, admits moving her body, admits dumping her in a dumpster, but then he changes his story.
Unbelievably, yes. The very next day, January 20th, he's interviewed again. And now the story shifts.
What's the new version?
Now, he claims they didn't just smoke marijuana. He says they took acid together. And he suggests that's what caused her death, a bad reaction to the acid.
Wait, so first it's marijuana and now it's acid. Why the change? Was he trying to find a cause of death that sounded, I don't know, more plausible than just falling asleep and dying after smoking weed?
That's certainly how it looks.
Yeah.
Maybe he thought the acid story sounded more like an accidental overdose. Less suspicious, perhaps. The detectives were definitely skeptical.
I bet. Did they push him on it?
They tried. They probably saw this new drug story as maybe an opening, trying to get him to confess to something more, maybe admitting he supplied the drugs or was more involved.
But they couldn't charge him with murder yet.
No, because even with these conflicting stories and suspicious actions, they still didn't have a confession to murder. And critically, they didn't have Zion's body.
Right. Without the body, proving murder is incredibly difficult.
Extremely.
Yeah.
So at that point, the only charge they could bring was for lying to police during the investigation. And he was arrested for that.
So he's arrested for lying, but the search for Zion has to continue, right? Based on his dumpster claim?
Exactly. And what followed was just immense. An 8-week search operation at the Highland Park landfills.
8 weeks. That's a massive effort.
Huge. Volunteers, heavy machinery, sifting through tons and tons of garbage in horrendous conditions, hoping for any sign of her. It's heartbreaking to even imagine.
And while this huge, grim search is going on, what's Jalen doing? He's in custody.
Yeah, and his calls are being monitored, and what they hear is, well, pretty disturbing.
What did he say?
He's talking to his partner, Katrina, and expressing relief that, quote, nothing major was being found in the landfill.
Relief, while they're searching for his cousin's body.
Yes. And he even starts referring to the search for Zion using a code name. He called it the search for Cox. At one point, he asked Katrina to tell someone to stop searching for Co.
Using code words sounds like he knew exactly what they were looking for and was hoping they wouldn't find it.
It definitely suggests consciousness of guilt, trying to obscure what was really happening. And on top of that, he somehow got a prohibited cell phone while he was locked up.
Seriously.
It's unclear how he got it, but he used it to send and receive thousands of messages with Katrina, clearly violating rules.
So he lies to police, uses code words about the body search, gets an illegal phone, and what happens with the lying charge?
He was sentenced, I think it was around 23 months. But he didn't serve nearly that long. He got into a boot camp program and was granted early release after just over 9 months.
9 months after all that. That must have been devastating for Zion's family.
Incredibly difficult, I imagine. He's out, and Zion is still missing.
But the police didn't give up, did they?
No, the investigation continued quietly. And then finally, a major break. On June 13, 2023, a year and a half after Zion disappeared, Jalen was arrested again.
And this time?
This time for second-degree murder and tampering with evidence.
What changed? What new evidence did they have? Was it the phone data?
It was. Remember that factory reset he did? Investigators didn't give up. They managed to recover data, not from the phone itself maybe, but from his cloud storage backups.
Ah, the cloud. People forget about the cloud.
They do.
Yeah.
And his cloud storage held his search history. And what they found was damning.
Okay, what was he searching for?
Just 3 days after Zion vanished, on January 7th, he's Googling things like, are garbage trucks also compactors?
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Oh.
And what is the force of a garbage truck compactor?
That's chillingly specific.
Yeah,
About where he claimed he put her body.
exactly. He also searched, how do police get your phone history? And how do you know if police are watching you?
It paints a picture of someone trying to figure out how much trouble he's in and how to cover his tracks.
Precisely. But it gets even worse. They didn't just find searches from after she disappeared.
What else was there?
They found searches from months before the incident. Numerous searches for pornographic material involving the terms cousin and step-cousin.
Seriously, involving cousins.
Yes. And reportedly, some of the search terms and content were violent and graphic in nature.
Okay, that adds a whole new, deeply disturbing layer to this. It suggests premeditation,
Oh.
or at least a very dark obsession.
It certainly points towards a disturbing fixation and potentially a motive far beyond simple panic.
So, with this new digital evidence, the case goes forward. What happened at the preliminary hearing?
Well, more conflicting information came out. Zion's boyfriend, Vertez, testified. And he claimed that he thought Zion had epilepsy and took medication for it.
Epilepsy. Where did that come from?
He described an incident where he saw her faint once, but
But her mother disputed that.
strongly. Sierra Milton testified and absolutely denied Zion ever having seizures or epilepsy. She backed it up with years of medical records showing no such condition.
So, another strange inconsistency. Why would Vertez bring that up? Was it an attempt to offer another possible cause of death, maybe?
It's hard to say for sure, but it definitely muddied the waters. The prosecution, however, had their theory
Which was?
that Jalen had been grooming Zion, that those disturbing searches showed he harbored fantasies about her, and that on that night he acted on those impulses, which led to her murder.
Did they offer a specific trigger or motive for that night?
Yes. They revealed that on the very day Zion disappeared, Jalen found out that his partner, Katrina, was pregnant.
Wow. Okay.
And remember, he lied to Katrina about where he was that night when he was with Zion. Plus, Katrina later noticed a fresh scratch on his collarbone. He brushed it off as a cat scratch.
The pregnancy announcement, lying to his partner, a scratch. It suggests a very volatile situation.
Exactly, a potential perfect storm of stress, deceit, and perhaps opportunity from his perspective.
And Jalen himself, did he testify at the trial?
No, he chose not to testify, and the defense didn't call any witnesses at all.
So the jury heard the prosecution's case, the conflicting stories, the digital evidence. What about expert testimony on the cause of death?
A forensic anthropologist testified. They ruled out a seizure as the cause of death based on typical presentations. They also said an asthma attack, another theory floated at some point I think would have looked different.
And what about Vertez, the boyfriend? Did anything else come from his testimony?
Interestingly, during cross-examination, Vertez admitted that Zion sometimes liked to tell stories.
Which could cast doubt on his own claim about her having seizures, couldn't it?
It certainly adds another layer of ambiguity to his testimony, yeah.
So the jury hears all this. How long did they take to decide?
It was incredibly fast. They came back with a guilty verdict in just 30 minutes.
30 minutes. That's remarkably quick for a murder trial.
It suggests the evidence, particularly that digital footprint, was overwhelmingly persuasive for them.
And at sentencing, did Jalen finally take responsibility?
Not at all. He still claimed innocence. He said Zion wasn't hurt, that he just reacted out of fear and panic because he didn't know how she died, still sticking to a version of that panic story.
How did the judge respond to that?
The judge was having none of it. He pointed out Jalen's complete lack of remorse, his constant manipulation, how his lies actively hindered the investigation for so long.
Did the judge think he could be rehabilitated?
No. The judge explicitly stated that rehabilitation seemed unlikely given his behavior.
And the sentence.
30 to 90 years for second-degree murder, plus another 5 to 10 years for tampering with evidence, to be served consecutively, meaning one after the other.
So, a very significant sentence. How did Zion's mother react?
Sierra Milton expressed immense relief. She said justice was finally served, and importantly that they had fought for Zion right to the end.
It's some measure of justice, for sure. But the hardest part remains.
Yes, despite that massive landfill search, despite everything, Zion's body has never been found.
And Jalen.
He remains in custody, awaiting placement in the general prison population to start serving that long sentence.
Such a tragic outcome. The conviction provides some answers, but the biggest one, exactly what happened in those final moments, we still don't know for sure.
We don't. And that lack of finality, coupled with the truly disturbing nature of those digital searches and his web of lies, it's deeply unsettling.
Absolutely. It really makes you think, doesn't it? About the secrets people can keep, even people within the same family, people you think you know.
It does. This whole deep dive kind of forces you to ask, what does this case show us about those hidden lives, the potential dangers lurking beneath the surface, even with those closest to us? How well can you ever really know someone's true intentions?
And the digital trail he left. It told a story he tried so hard to erase. It makes you think about how easily dark secrets might be hidden, but also how vital it is to keep digging, keep investigating, even when, like here, the most crucial piece of physical evidence, Zion herself is still missing. That persistence was key.